All right. So we're here, y'all, for our weekly installment of our Zoom through interview series. And I have a dear friend of mine and colleague in this work with me tonight, James Ford. Many of you will remember James. He came and led us through a pretty dynamic day of learning last November at our summit. James, we know, first of all, welcome and thanks for being with us tonight. Thank
Pleasure,
you.
pleasure. Thank you.
I've always been a fan of yours and inspired by your work, and I think now more than ever we need to answer the call. So, I'll start with the accolades: state board member, North Carolina Teacher of the Year, started Creed, which is a equity organizing organization. We know all the incredible stuff you're up to, but I ask everybody we start with. When we start one of these interviews, to just tell us, like, who are you and what are you up to in the world? What do you stand for right now, James?
Yeah, so I am first and foremost, I'm a person of faith, man. A person compelled by the higher way of living. Um, like anybody else, don't always get it right, but I'm a believer. You know what I mean? Husband, father. I'm an African American. You can probably tell, hugely proud of that. Both of those parts of my ethnicity and race. And what I do is I try to enact what I believe my faith tradition um, casts as a vision for the world to make it a reality. So I'm about truth. I'm about justice. I'm about fairness. I'm about integrity and respecting all of God's creatures and finding ways to create a world that conforms to that. And education is my way of doing that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I know you were a pretty amazing teacher at one point, and still are. Just not in the classroom every day. As you're talking to our core members today, and they're hurting, particularly our brothers and sisters of color, and my Black friends and colleagues, people in this work. But they're thinking about, okay, how do we take action? How do we make a difference? What words of encouragement or wisdom, or just words, do you have right now for leaders who are taking on this work?
Um, One is, I think it's okay to feel it. Something is there's an extreme pain there, and the sequence of events. It's not just been like one event. There has been like a perfect storm of really horrible events, from Ahmaud Arbery's, extrajudicial killing that was effectively a 21st century lynching, Breonna Taylor's being gunned down in her home, no knock warrant. Um, trans brother Tony McDade down in Florida being killed by police, and then George Floyd, a day after the Amy Cooper sort of, wasn't a killing, but, weaponizing of whiteness to really endanger the life of a Black man living his life. All these things it's real. And I feel like those things were sewn together in such a way that it illuminated a truth that we knew on paper, sort of, but to make it so real and palpable, folks are hurting, they're grieving, they're angry, they're mourning, and yet something's churning, something's changing, and there's a consciousness that's being developed. And so I guess what I would implore folks to do is to lean into that, embrace that, satisfy that hunger to learn more until you satiate yourself. Allow for other voices of color to be able to speak candidly to you and through you, and find ways to not shy away. Work through the discomfort. Discomfort is part of the process, but it's not the destination. Because we can galvanize this moment to do something better, and that's what I'm resting all my hope in, is that this can truly lead to something better. It's a tragedy, but God has a strange sense of humor, and He may end up yet using something like this to really create the world we want to see.
Yeah, appreciate that. And I know, I've learned a lot from you over the years about how to learn in this work, and to get into action with an equity lens, particularly for racial equity. But I also know we've talked a lot about organizing, and how we get people to kind of come together and collectively find some power. Tell me a little bit more about what you're up to on that front.
Yeah, so I run the organization CREED, the Center for Racial Equity in Education, alongside my friend and partner Janine Bryant, a TFA alum from Charlotte. And organization does three things. We do research, put out some research about race and equity in education. We do engagement, and then we do implementation. And part of that huge umbrella of engagement work is a coalition called the Freedom Hill Coalition, named after Freedom Hill, the first settlement of formerly enslaved people in America, which happened to be in Edgecombe County, North Carolina. The spirit of that emancipation, right? The spirit of that abolitionist approach to life is what we want to embody. And when you look at all the inequities, man, for kids of color, Black, Latinx, Native, mixed race kids, Southeast Asian kids, we know that racism doesn't just prevail in the criminal justice system, it prevails in the education system too. And so we know this, stakeholders, parents, they know, kids know, even if they don't have the data, but what are we doing about it? And so now is the moment we got to pull together an assorted group of stakeholders, man. Teachers, students, parents, business leaders, civic leaders, activists, whoever cares. And we got to figure out how to put together an agenda that we're going to hold, our education system and the players in that system accountable for. One that does right by the kids who are so often pushed to the margins, pushed to the periphery. And, what better time than right now to do that? And so that coalition building work is what we want to do, a multiracial, multi-sector coalition to help enact racial equity in education.
Awesome. So critical, and I'm glad you mentioned students and parents there too. We've been talking a lot at Teach for America here in Eastern North Carolina. I know with Charlotte Piedmont Triad too, about school can't work when it's done to kids, especially when it wasn't designed by them or for them. I really appreciate, the effort and the intentionality of getting our young people involved and being part of that coalition. So tell me more. Saturday, there's something that we could join if we want to be part of this effort.
Absolutely. Our first fully public Freedom Hill Coalition convening is taking place on the morning of June the 13th. And it's our attempt to kind of introduce this concept to the world. We're going to go over, some of what we've seen from our data and our research, like what you shared in November. We're going to have a small panel with folks from, all the various subgroups and communities that I mentioned. And then we're going to lay out the agenda, lay out our core commitments and values as a collective, and sort of invite people to build power with us, right? To help change the fate of the state for the education of our students. And so if you're interested in that, please come out to the Freedom Hill convening. Again, it's Saturday morning on June 13th. We'd love to have you come build with us.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing you on Saturday, and I'm going to make sure that our network has the access to, and hopefully everybody will come out, because I think, it's a moment to take action, and we're stronger when we take action together. So that's James, right. I appreciate you greatly. Thank you for taking a few minutes to share what's there for you and to give us an opportunity to really do something about this moment in time and to build a more just and more equitable North Carolina. So
thanks for creating space, brother.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man.